Ons is dan nou lewendig hier op Boermedia. Dit is Sondag aand, dis die 18de en ons is hierso in gesprek met advokaat Richard Botha. Nou hy is nie onbekend aan ons Boermedia kykers nie. Hy het al 'n paar keer met ons gepraat, maar iets wat ek net graag vir julle wil net gou agtergrond gee voordat ons nou die gesprek aangaan. Richard, kom ek sê nou net eers van ons kant af baie welkom hierso.
Goeienaand Koot en baie dankie vir die geleentheid en goeienaand aan die kykers.
Ja, kyk, ons wil net gou graag net so vinnig so 'n bietjie 'n paar aspekte bespreek na aanleiding van hierdie Groblersdal vuur en spesifiek met verwysing na die borgaansoek. Maar net voordat ons nou gaan begin, wil ek net gou graag vir ons mense net gou agtergrond gee. So ons was toe nou die afgelope paar dae en veral donderdag en Vrydag betrokke by die aanhoor van die borgaansoek van Willem Petzer en TV Wessels Devin Hofmeyer en dan natuurlik François natuurlik nou nommer 1 of accused nommer 1, aangeklagte nommer 1. Nou ons wil graag weet dan nou ons het die saak dopgehou want hulle was laasweek maandag het hulle self gaan oorgee en het ons toe nou weet die saak nou amper half gemonitor en ons eers gedog dit gaan donderdag afgehandel word, donderdag wat nou verby was. En toe loop dit oor na Vrydag toe. Nou toe dit nou Vrydag weer gebeur, toe kry die ander advokate van Willem en TV en Devin eers kans om werklikwaar te praat. En toe het ons so gedink omrede dit 'n skedule 1 aansoek is of 'n skedule 1 saak is, dat hulle gaan sommer baie vinnig dan nou weet kom ons noem dit borg kry. Advokaat Richard, kan jy vir ons kykers en vir ons tog net help om dit beter te verstaan? Hoe werk hierdie borgaansoek? Beteken dit dat omrede dit nou 'n gesamentlike klag en jy moet nou verstaan, ons vra nou as prins of partykeer as prins, maar partykeer ook maar omdat ons dom is. Hierdie vraag want ons wil weet hoe dit werk. Moet al 4 gelyk borgaansoek kry of word hierdie borgaansoek eintlik vir elke individuele persoon hanteer?
Well, you see, in terms of a bail application, as ek kom by borg is, elke persoon individually, they assessed individually because the circumstances for each individual could be different. For instance, let's say one of the members is out on bail at the moment. That would have an effect on his ability to get bail. You know what I mean? Or if he's on parole at the moment, that would affect his ability to get bail. Whereas if the others are not in that situation, they would be adjudicated totally differently. So it's actually each individual that is assessed as to whether or not they're entitled to bail, especially in terms of the fact that it's a Schedule 1 offence. I mean, the basic premise of a Schedule 1 offence is you are entitled to bail. That's the basic premise, and that's how it should be looked at. So there has to be extreme circumstances as to why you shouldn't get bail. And so that, of course, put forward.
So can we assume that the magistrate actually sees extreme circumstances, or these circumstances that you're referring to?
Well, I think the mayor has to, in terms of the law, adjudicate whether or not these members are a threat to society, whether or not they
you say mayor or magistrate?
The magistrate, sorry.
Magistrate, all right.
I apologize, magistrate. I think I'm getting confused that the ex-mayor was walking with the crowd. The magistrate has to decide whether there's strict criteria on whether or not the person is a threat to society at large, whether or not a person will try and evade the court case. So, I mean, and then whether or not the person will intimidate witnesses. So that's your 3 basic criteria when it comes to bail. And the bar is not it's not huge when it comes to Schedule 1 offences. It's more when you get to, the violent crime and those sort of aspect that the bar is raised quite substantially. So,
But we heard on Friday from the other two advocates that the state do not object or
they don't
oppose
oppose
the
bail.
they don't
Yeah,
oppose the
I've
ban.
heard that as well.
So why is it then that they could not get bail on Friday?
Well, you see, you're at the discretion of the court. So obviously the court has some reason as to why, maybe he wants to do, like you said, a blanket ruling for all four, even although each person is there individually in terms of bail. So
Can
I'm
you
not
just
100% sure why he would have. From what he seemed to be saying is that there was a deliberation around one of the individuals. I think that was
no, exactly. I think number one, which is Francois, they object
yeah.
his bail. So we understand that, but now the other ones, the other three, on the day, when you do the application, I mean, you said the individual should be considered his bail or not.
Yes, yes.
Because you're one. So what I'm just asking is what could have stopped the magistrate to say, listen, okay, these three guys, they can go on bail so long, but number one can stay. For instance, just as an example, I'm just trying to understand the process, the legal process.
Well, you see, the thing is, like you said, they're applying for bail as individuals. But he may have deemed the case to be a single case. I mean, the ruling itself, it's strange that he would lump them together because there are different crimes for these people, although it's a common cause of action. I don't know if they are charged together or if they charged individually. That would have a.
Is it so the charge could also play a role?
Yeah, it depends on how they charged. Are they charged individually or are they charged together? Because from what I understand, accused 1, accused 2, accused 3, accused 4, which means they may be charged together. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a fan of that aspect of it.
All right. Now, can you explain to us the schedules? Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, the different up to 5. Am I right? And what?
Yeah, well,
what is
your
the
Schedule 1 are your minor, what would be considered minor offences. Obviously, as you go higher in the schedules, the more severe the crimes are. Your Schedule 6, 7, your violent crime when it comes to murder, rape, all those aspects. When it comes to the minor schedules, your minor assault, your Schedule 2s are your GBHs and those aspects. But then as you go up in the schedule, so they become murder and those aspects of crimes.
and
That's why,
incitement to public violence? What schedule is that?
as far as I understand, that's a Schedule 1, especially if no violence has taken place.
Okay, so schedule 1. Now, if
Yeah.
it's Schedule 1, what does your legal documentation or the rules on your side, the law says a Schedule 1 can be granted bail by who?
Well, look, with the Schedule 1, there's various aspects that bail could be granted. Step number 1, if a person is not deemed a danger to society, they could have actually applied for police bail when they were arrested. Okay. Then they would have had to have appeared in court, and that would have had to have been upheld by the court. When it comes to actual court itself, the schedule is deemed that bail is allowed. I mean, bail should be given for a Schedule 1 unless there are circumstances that don't allow for it. So there's very. Yes.
So we need to find out those circumstances, because there's no black and white application of the law, so to speak, with regards to the granting of the bail. So we need to
No,
understand the
he,
circumstances that the magistrate uses in his mind, or in his what you call it,
no, it
understanding
is
of the
black and
case.
white. It is black and white in the fact that he has to be able to prove it, and it's not subjective. It's an objective assumption, an objective finding. Is this a person a danger to society? Which means, let's say he committed a common assault, but he's already on parole for grievous bodily harm. Then he that could stand
That
as
could.
grounds to say, no, well, we can't let him out because he seems to be busy with assault. You understand what I'm saying?
But in this case, we know that none of that is. If we have no previous offences, it is basically a matter of the investigation officer wants it, and that's why he objects it. And the other fact is, but I understand what you're saying now. I'm not going to hammer too much on that one. The next thing I want to ask you is the incitement of public violence. We've watched the video. You and I have watched the video, and you came to the conclusion that there was no real incitement to public violence, which I can, going to put you on the spot now. The question is protest action. Can we do a protest action? Can we protest? And can I, call people via videos on social media to engage in a protest action? Is it my legal right, or where do I cross the line with regards to protest versus inviting people to a protest action and inciting them, or incitement? You understand
Okay,
what I'm asking?
first of all, in terms of Section 17 of the Constitution, okay, everyone has the right to peacefully and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions. That's a right. Okay, so what the group was doing was 100% within the law. Okay, and from what I understand, they followed the gathering, the regulations on gathering, in that they did notify the local municipality and the police that they intended to do the gathering. I know there was a bit of a hiccup around those aspects, but as far as I understand, that procedure was followed completely, and the whole course on the march had already been established, as far as I understand. Now, in terms of there was a late call apparently for them to use tractors in order to facilitate the march, and there was the police decided that, that shouldn't take place, and the police have the right to do that in terms of traffic, and it may cause disruption to the daily traffic and those aspects. So they could have had the right to turn that down in terms of that.
But I want you to focus on the word incitement. Because
Okay,
these guys are social media influencers, and they are using videos to get people to engage in a protest action. Is that legal or illegal?
no, that's legal. To encourage people to get involved in a protest action is totally legal. To encourage people to go and burn down a building, or go and attack people, or to do anything that propagates violence, that is an incitement to commit violence.
And we saw that these guys never did that. They want
No,
to go
I
to
mean,
the
I looked
court.
at the footage. I looked at your footage from the discussions that you had with the various organizers, and it happened to be those that were sitting in in the box in court later, I mean, they wouldn't, in my mind, there was never an indication of committing violence. It was purely, we're marching down, we're going to go and protest, and we're going to protest for the rights in terms of the bail application that was being made of the accused.
Richard, one thing that we discussed, off camera was, if this case, let's say this case gets to an end and these guys gets what you call it, hulle word skuldig, they're guilty of this incitement of public violence. One thing is for sure, it's going to change the whole spectrum, the whole, what you call it, the world outside there in South Africa. If these three guys are going to get, going to be charged with this incitement of public violence, I would love to see that, because then, I mean, we can go after the big M and we can really say, you know what, say anything on social media, we are there for you. How do you see it?
I think I'm inclined to agree with you in that, that incitement to commit public violence, if you make the bar this low, then there are a lot of incidences that have taken place in the past in this country, and a lot of incidences and words that are stated in this country, which could be deemed as an offense of trying to incite public violence. And, we know that we've had a ruling when it comes to Malema that Kill the Farmer, Kill the Boer is a struggle song, but it still has an element of incitement within it. And the struggle's over. I mean, 94, power was given up by the previous regime. Power was given up peacefully, and peace was requested. I mean, it's never easy for a regime to give up power. I mean, power is one of the hardest things to give up. I mean, we've seen that in Africa. We saw how Robert Mugabe refused to give up power. We've seen how in various countries throughout Africa, people have been unwilling to give up power. Yet the previous regime gave up that power. And to continue to say that the struggle continues and we need to kill the farmer, kill the Boer, I think that could be deemed as an incitement to commit violence.
Absolutely, in terms of incitement. I think the scale of the incitement, I mean, this is not incitement. This is encouragement of people to engage in a protest march.
That's it. And there was no let's go and burn down the court, or let's go and mess people around or mess people up, or nothing like that. And it was just a matter of, we're coming to show, from what I heard, shows solidarity to those that were waiting to hear about their bail application.
I just want to go to accused number 1, which is Francois van der Merwe. He actually pushed through the police, and then he scuffled there with the police, and 8 policemen actually took him down on the tar road. Some of them stepped on him. They used a little bit of physical force to get him down onto the ground. My question is, in that actions of them, he got hurt. He went to the doctor, to the hospital that night, and there was possibilities of what noem is it, hersenskade. What do you call it? Concussion. Yeah, that's the word. Concussion. So if that is true, that he has had concussion, then the assault that happened afterwards, because the assault happened afterwards, where he actually hit somebody with his elbow while he was scuffling there. And then that police person then, charged him for assault.
Yeah.
Because Francois or the guys, the other guys that stayed behind, actually had a negotiation with the general on the day. and say, General, but we want Francois to come back. You must bring Francois back to us. Then we will remain calm and we will march, the route that you are suggesting. Then the general said, no, I'm not going to give him back to you now. I'm going to wait for you guys to finish your march peacefully. Then I will return him back to you. All right. And then in that time, Francois then scuffled and hit somebody in the face or something like that, and then he was then taken back, or the general said, we can't give him back because there's now an assault case, so we can't give him back. So let's leave it there. I don't want to go into those details. All I want to say to you, all I want to say is, if he had concussion, is it possible that his behavior could have changed after that?
Well, I think in terms of how bad the concussion was, if it was a serious concussion, and we've seen it. I mean, people that have been suffered concussion on a rugby field, how sometimes they'll act erratically and act abnormally because they're not 100% sure of where they are and what they're doing. I think, yes, it is quite possible that maybe that had an influence on his behavior, but obviously that'll have to be taken up in a court of law to establish whether or not that might have had an influence on his actions.
I think in the trials we'll definitely see that. We are definitely going to follow that. My last question before we can basically close this interview, Richard, is if this last 7 days that these guys were being detained, is there possibilities of civil cases? Can that happen?
Well, if it's you see, the thing is, they've been detained under certain legal principles. Okay, they've been accused of a crime, and the fact that 3 of the people came and presented themselves when informed that there was a warrant out for their arrest. I feel that there was many ways that it could have been dealt with by the police. There does seem to be a level of, playing to an audience over here. I'm not 100% sure. But what I can say is that there are many situations where people have presented themselves and they've been let out on bail immediately, and there hasn't been this whole process. I don't know, having looked at the situation when the confrontation did take place between the police and the members that were actually marching on the day, it does appear that when asked, why do you want to restrict our right to march, the police refused to actually give a reason. And I feel that that was probably the wrong thing, because in terms of the Public Gathering Act, the police have to act under credible information under oath if they want to restrict a person's rights in these manners. These are constitutional rights, and these are rights that can't be undermined willy-nilly. And I believe that when the general said, well, I have information and I refuse to share it, from what I understand afterwards, it was stated that because the EFF was coming from the other side, that seems to be the report that came through media. It should have been shared with the participants so that they acted with knowledge and not with a perception of, well, you're just trying to disrupt our march.
I'm with you. So, but the fact that there can be civil cases instituted because of the lagging or the delay in the bail application, is that possible or not?
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to those sort of things, the onus is going to be on the proof. I would have to look before I make a statement on that. You'd have to know the conditions and the proof around it. You understand?
No,
You'd have
of
to
course.
understand what the state's intention was.
Of course. I just want to say from our side, and I know you can't say it, but from my side, I can say that I think that the magistrate did not make what you call it, a judgment. Hy het nie 'n uitspraak gemaak op die dag nie. He said he will do it on Monday, which is tomorrow, which is the 19th of February. He will do it tomorrow. But is it possible that he withheld his judgment because he needed to speak to his seniors or his colleagues about this case?
A judge is supposed to act or a magistrate judge, any representative of the bench is supposed to act independently based on the facts that he sees before him. I mean, if you look at this matter and if you were to see how the courts have operated previously, to understand if they acted totally out of character when it came to this situation compared to how they act previously, yes, then you could argue that point, and you could argue that there seems to be some sort of prejudice happening, but I would be reluctant to say that, purely on the basis that there's no proof saying something like that, and unfortunately, people make statements without proof, and I would not do that. You understand? But if you did look into past behavior and look at how bail is usually granted in front of the magistrate, and when it comes to matters of a similar situation, then one can actually start drawing conclusions and start looking at certain aspects.
Iets wat ek net kan sê is, en ek weet nie of dit is in al die howe so is nie, maar daar by Groblersdal is dit maar, daar's 'n geweldige stadige pas. Alles word uitgerek en uitgetrek. Selfs van die mense wat die saak nou elke keer dopgehou het met elke verhoor van François, het hulle gesê dat hulle kom op die dag daaraan en dan hoor hulle letterlik dan gebeur die borgaansoek basies 'n uur of 'n bietjie meer as 'n uur. En dan is dit goed soos beerdkrag wat hulle ophou, of in ons geval het ons selfs die rekenaar het nou probleempies gehad, en dit het 15 minute gevat om dit uit te kry. Dit word gesê, ons begin 3 uur, en dan kom die landros 20:03, nou ons verstaan, die landros het seker baie ander taakies ook om te doen, is nie net daai taakie nie, maar wat ek probeer sê is, dan word nie gesê, kom ons vat hierdie ding, ons tackle ons maak hom klaar nie, dit voel nie, dit word heeltyd uitgestel en uitgestel. Dit is nie so 'n kwessie van ons wag nog vir hierdie ondersoek van hierdie aspek nie. Toe die manne hulle self gaan oorgee, was die hoofrede, maar hulle het nog nie hulle adresse geverifieer nie, dit maandag. En ek bedoel, so eintlik die les wat ons daaruit leer is, bly by die huis, sodat hulle jou by die huis kan kom arresteer, dan doen hulle sommer klaar die checking van jou adres, is ek reg?
Well, look, in terms of the checking of the address and everything like that, that's the police's responsibility. That's not the court's responsibility. The police have the responsibility to ensure that all those requirements, and it's a requirement in terms of law for the police to check those things. So I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference.
But hindsight, shouldn't it have better for them to say, listen guys, we are here at our houses. You are welcome to come and arrest us at our houses. We're not going to present ourselves.
I believe that if you come and present yourself to the police, what you are doing is you're acting in good faith.
But it did not help them. But it did not help them.
You're acting in good faith. That should have counted in favor of. to continue with the arrest and everything like that, like I said, you'd have to look at other procedures on how they deal with these situations normally to ascertain whether or not this is out of the ordinary, the way they've acted. And that's what I would do. I would investigate the normal action of the police and see whether or not this is the normal procedure that is followed. And if the procedure seems somewhat heavy-handed, then you would have to ask why. And I know there's a lot of speculation that this was done on a heavy-handed basis, but you see, you'd have to understand why the police acted in that way.
Richard, ons het gehoor en die ondersoekbeampte het Vrydag ook gesê dat hy kyk nog uit vir nog arrestasies. Hy wil nog mense in hegtenis neem oor hierdie saak. So dit raak eintlik nou interessant hierdie hele saak, ondersoeksaak. So hy's nou nog besig met sy ondersoek, maar hy het klaar te kenne gegee dat daar's nog mense wat hy graag in hegtenis wil neem. Nou dit maak my bekommerd, want die mense wat in hegtenis wat ons op die videomateriaal gesien het, is mense wat toegekyk het, hulle het agtergestaan. Ek weet nie wie dit is nie, maar broer, dit is die volgende mense wat jy kan sê wat die naaste aan die voorstes was, wat hy nou wil gaan in hegtenis neem. Dis die mense wat saam deurbeweeg het, né? Saam deurbeweeg het.
'n Persoon kan nie net gearresteer word nie. Daar moet redes wees vir arrestasie. You see, if you start arresting people based on zero evidence, that's when civil procedure starts kicking in. That's when you start taking action against authorities that are acting outside of their authority and that are acting inappropriately. We've had many of those incidents, and I know the police department is inundated with those sort of things, with wrongful arrest, and you just need to look at the media to understand that there's billions of rands that have had to have been paid out for wrongful arrests and wrongful actions in detention and all those aspects. So I hope that the authorities are not making themselves guilty of something like that, because that would taint the situation inextricably if that were to come out, and it would cause a lot of problems if that were to come out. I think that it's best to act circumspectly in situations like this to ensure that the proper rule of law is followed, and that the state doesn't make itself guilty of actions that could bring the state into disrepute.
Ja, ons hoop inderdaad so. Ons wil net vir ons kykers ook dan net sê is, ons gaan môre daar wees by Groblersdal. Ons gaan 8:30 daar wees wanneer die hof amptelik oopmaak. Maar dan gaan ons maar sit en wag totdat hierdie saak verskyn, want ons weet dit gebeur nie vinnig nie, dit is eers klomp ander goede. Ons verwag dat die uitspraak iets soos 5 of 10 minute gaan wees. Met ander woorde, dit gaan 'n kort dingetjie wees, manne gaan inkom, die landros gaan instap, hy gaan die judgment gee in 5 of 10 minute, hy gaan uitstap, die wat borg gekry het, gaan huis toe gaan, en die wat nie borg gekry het nie, gaan weer selle toe gaan. Is ek reg, dis aan 'n kort, dit hoort kort te wees, Richard?
Well, he's giving judgment, so there's nothing else to hear, unless, of course, he wants to ask for clarity or something like that on something that was said. And he's decided that he cannot give judgment based on questions that he might have. Usually those would have been done through, but it can happen. But it shouldn't. He seemed to have heard what he wanted to hear from what I saw. And I would think that, yes, it should be fairly short. Judgment should be read, and that's it.
So hou asseblief môre, Maandag die 19de, hou asseblief die Boermedia kanale dop. Ons gaan daar wees, ons gaan vir jou dadelik laat weet wanneer hierdie manne borg gekry het. Ons glo en vertrou ten minste 3 van hulle gaan borg kry. Ons wil nou, lyk my daar soos nog 'n haakplek by François, wat ek nie kan verstaan nie, maar goed, op hierdie stadium het ek dit gehoor op grond van dit wat hulle bespreek het. Ons kyk of die regter dalk, die magistraat of die landros dalk nou dit kan in sy uitspraak weet al 4 van hulle dalk weet borg gee, want as hy dan nou vir François borg amptelik weier, dan moet François appelproses volg. Is ek reg?
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, that's correct. He would have to appeal the yeah.
En dan is dit nog regskostes. So net of julle net so 'n stukkie Richard, wat kos 'n advokaat nou al vir 'n 8 ure sessie, want daai twee advokate van Willem en TV en van Devin het nou een dag gesit en niks gedoen nie. Hulle kon nie eens praat nie. So die hof hulle weet alles vertraag en niks gebeur nie. So wat kos 'n advokaat? Net gee dit vir ons mense 'n gemiddelde bedrag.
Well, look, it varies. It varies from a lawyer to lawyer, and it depends obviously on the seniority of the advocate. I mean, it can range anywhere from 2,000 rand an hour to 5,000, 10,000 rand an hour. You know what I mean?
Up to 10,000 rand an hour.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
so
if you're dealing with the Harry Nels and things like that, then it can be even more expensive than that.
Yeah, well, I think some of these advocates
the seniority of counsel.
Let's say 5,000 rand an hour. It means 8 times 5 is 40,000 rand a day. So every time that these guys has to come in and do their cases, it's 40,000 rand. Ping. So ek wil graag vir ons kykers vra, julle gaan besoek gerus hierdie Bittereinde se bladsye, TV se bladsye en Willem se bladsye. En as julle bereid voel of lus voel om hierdie mense te ondersteun die fondse. Ek weet hulle kyk na mekaar. Ek het gehoor dat die manne praat daarvan en ek wil dit nou nie as 'n gegewe gee nie, maar die manne het gepraat dat hulle gaan mekaar help om deur hierdie ding te gaan. So al kry een ou meer as die ander ou, hulle gaan mekaar help. So moenie ongemaklik voel nie. Ek dink al hierdie ouens se boeke is hulle bereid om te enige tyd vir enige iemand te gee en te wys. En daarmee kan ons dan nou weet gerus wees oor die hantering van die fondse, want dit hulle geld, hulle gaan maar geld nodig het. Ek dink nie een van hierdie ouens is miljonêers nie, so ons kan ongelukkig nie aanneem dat hulle geld het nie. Richard, ek wil vir jou sê van Boermedia se kant af, dankie dat jy ingestaan het om vanaand oor hierdie saak te praat. Ek weet dit is 'n moeilike saak. Ons het 'n paar ander regsgeleerdes ook probeer inkry om saam met ons te kom gesels. En ja, ek verstaan dat die ouens weet maar baie versigtig is. Ons het met mense naby aan die saak ook probeer kontak maak en met hulle te gesels. Hulle het ook gesê hulle staan eers 'n bietjie terug. Natuurlik die advokate wat daar op die dag is, hulle wil natuurlik nog glad nie gesels nie. Hulle is heeltemal stil. So ek glo ook nie ons gaan môre met hierdie manne as hulle uitkom, sal ons ook eers met hulle kan gesels. Ek twyfel of ons met hulle mag op daai stadium gesels. So moet nou nie verwag dat ons nou op hierdie stadium môre al met hulle sal kan gesels nie. Ons gaan ons bes probeer om ten minste net te hoor hoe was dit daar in die selle. Ek weet net hulle kla op die stadium, dit is geweldig warm en as ek dit reg hoor ek hulle is omtrent so 20 in een sel. So dit gaan rof daar binnekant. Ja, dit is nie aangenaam nie. Ek dink ek wens dit enigiemand toe nie. So ek laat ons nie op hierdie manne trap en op hulle skop terwyl hulle nie in hierdie situasie is nie. Kom ons help hulle op en lig hulle uit, want hierso is 'n bietjie van 'n onreg waar te neem. Nie 'n bietjie nie, jy kan maar miskien sê bietjie, kom ons sê maar baie onreg wat ons optel. En onthou nou net, hierdie ouens, ons stel dit nou op want hierdie ouens het 'n sosiale media gevolg. Ander ouens gaan deur baie erger prosesse. Mense gaan deur baie erger prosesse in die regstelsel en dit word nie gerapporteer op hierdie mate nie. So kom ons hou aan, weet die regstelsel daar waar hulle onbillik, onregverdig optree, die dinge aanspreek. Richard, 'n laaste woord van jou af, dan kan ons afsit.
I just want to point out that the law is extremely important, and the law is the difference between anarchy and a structured society. We have to have faith in the law, and therefore that the law should be practiced in terms of the law, and it should be carried out in terms of the law. Unfortunately, we do have situations where, yes, we have extreme delays in courts because of power failure, and that's the shortcomings of what has happened in our country at the moment when it comes to the infrastructure and how things are falling apart. It's important, though, that in terms of the law, that the law is practiced in accordance with the law, and that we can have faith that at the end of the day, a right verdict can be given in all these matters. So let's listen to what happens on Monday and see how the courts decide, and then let's give support to these guys that have tried to stand up and stand up for right in the situation, and let's go from there as a community. Yes.
Ek wil net die laaste beroep doen op enige van ons kykers en mense wat graag hierdie mense wil gaan ondersteun en fisies daar voor die hof gaan verskyn. Hulle het gevra asseblief, moet nog nie daar kom. Moet nog nie op daai manier weer protesaksies te doen nie. Dit plaas ongelukkig onnodige druk nou op hierdie saak. So kom ons kry eers die manne uit en dan sal ons as dit nodig is die volgende aksies besluit of gesamentlik besluit. Richard,
just remember, Quid, it is our right to public protest. That is a right, and it's not a right that can arbitrarily be restricted. So don't be scared of that right. You have the right to protest, and you have the right to make your voice heard. The fact that they've requested it, that's that's their prerogative. But at the end of the day, we have a right, and Section 17 of the Constitution guarantees that right. And an officer of the police can't willy-nilly override that right. He has to have valid reasons for overriding that right. Just remember that.
Richard, baie dankie. Ons gaan dan môre vanaf Groblersdal weer met ons kykers en ons ondersteuners op ons sosiale media praat. Volg ons gerus tot môre dan. Baie dankie en 'n lekker aand vir jou.
Thank you very much, Quid, and good night to your viewers.